Okay, so now it's time to apply your architectural image onto your fabulous, wonderful box. So you're going to take your architectural image and you need to put it on the table first, the one that you're going to start with first. Then you need to get a piece of saran wrap, which I have a big, nice roll for you. And you're going to place the saran wrap over the top of your image. And you're just going to take a piece of masking tape and tape at the top. And you're going to stretch it as tight as you can get it without it untaping. And add another piece. And then you're going to continue to tape on all four edges of your paper. So you should only need about 4 sheets of masking tape. Then the next step, you're going to take a Sharpie. And you're going to want to use the super fine tip Sharpie, not the wide, broad tip. And you're going to start very carefully tracing your image onto the plastic wrap. So you're just going to trace over the main big lines. If you get too crazy in here, you're going to have too much confusion when you transfer it over to your pot. So think about the main big structural pieces, and then you can go back and add more pieces on there. So I'm going to start at the top of my Eiffel Tower, and I'm just going to carefully start tracing out my lines with the Sharpie. And I'm going to go all the way around all my edges. And try to go as slow as possible. So you need to be careful when you're tracing your lines, because on paper it's white is what's raised up, but when you start using your Sharpie, what's raised up is actually your black. So you need to reverse it when you're actually transferring on your pot. So when you draw on your pot, you need to remember all the lines that you drew in are actually raised lines, not carved in lines. So that gets a little tricky. And I'm just going to continue going all the way around all my bulky spots and copy my image onto my saran wrap. In the next shot, I will show you how to take your piece of saran wrap and actually attach it to your piece so you can actually transfer your piece onto your pot now. Now I have my image traced onto my saran wrap, and I need to get it transferred onto my pot. So what I'm going to do is take the saran wrap. I put a little bit of water on my pot just so it kind of acts as a little bit of glue. So it's going to stick your plastic wrap really nice on your piece. You're going to stretch it out, push as much of the bubbles out as possible. That way your image actually adheres to your pot. And then this part is not very complicated. You can actually use the dotting tool, or you can use a ballpoint pen. I recommend a ballpoint pen because it doesn't snag. The dotting tool you have to press really, really lightly, and it still sometimes snags on your plastic. But all you have to do is with your ballpoint pen or your dotting tool is go over your lines and start retracing what you've drawn out onto your pot. So you're just going to go over every line that you drew and traced on from your picture onto onto your saran wrap. And then you're going to take your saran wrap and you're going to trace on top of your saran wrap onto your pot. So as you start drawing these lines, I'm just going to draw a couple more lines for you. Okay, so I transferred my design onto my pot, and I've already started adding a little bit of clay. You really have to think about adding and subtracting clay. So you need to pull out, after you trace your image, look at your picture again. This is the image that I'm working on here on this design. And I'm trying to pull out the white areas are all the raised spots. So I need to add clay to give them raised. You can carve a little bit into your box, but remember it's only a 1/4 inch thick. So you have to remember not to carve too deep or carve a hole in your piece. So you might need to add a little bit of clay. And when I talk about little bits of clay, I'm talking like little coils. So you're going to have to be rolling out little amounts of clay. You cannot add large chunks of clay onto your piece. So here, all I did to get this arch part that is on our paper right here is add a little bit of clay. So all we have to do is just keep doing that. So I'm going to work on adding this bridge because there's an actual building down below the Eiffel Tower that's in my image. So I'm including parts of this line right here. So we're going to go ahead and do that part. So all you have to do is think about adding slip. Paintbrushes will help you a lot for this part because you don't want a lot of slip and a big mess. So you can take a little paintbrush, add some water, and you're just going to paint it onto where you want your coil to go. And I need to make the ledge for my building. So I'm going to lay my pot down, kind of angle it so you guys can see, and add my clay. Now you don't want to you want to start on the inside and work your way out so you can start blending it in. You add a little bit of water to your hands. You can start actually pressing the clay down to add this coil into your clay. You then need to take, if you need it to be more square, I'll take my wooden tool because it's flat and it has a 90-degree edge. I'll scrape on the side and it'll give me a straight wall edge. And I'll turn my pot. I'll do it again here. Trying to be careful not to hit what I've already worked on. And keep adding and straightening up my edge as we go, because this is supposed to be a straight line. So the trick is to try to get it as straight as possible. And if you need to adjust anything, you can. It's pretty forgiving at this stage. That's why it's important to keep your clay as soft, leather hard as possible. So I just added that wall, and now I just need to get it as even as possible. And then I need to smooth it out just a little bit more because that's just the upper edge of the wall on the top of the building. And then I need to think about, this is the rest of the building, but it has other architectural elements. So right here on the box, there's like a column that comes down, and then there's another column here. So I'm going to go ahead and build those. Next, there's some arched windows, and then there's a sconce that actually fits here. So I'm going to keep building out. Some of the other areas that are really carved in, you can actually carve in. On this other side, I did more carving in because the image, see if I have the image for you. This was the image that I was replicating on this side. So I had a lot more open space, so I went ahead and added a little bit of clay, but I've actually carved away clay in here, but not too much that it's going to take off and thin and compromise my walls. The biggest thing is you don't want to compromise your walls. You want them to stay a 1/4 inch thick. So you can add a little bit of clay onto them.